Sometimes when something's going on in New York, they change the flight pattern and then it flies over my house. I think we've done this before. We've had this conversation before. And I'm just trying to decide if I should close the window. And Eric's going to be like, yes, motherfucker.
While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about, have you seen the movie The Fall Guy?
I have not. I've not been out of my house.
Okay, because there's this really funny part, and I'm sort of channeling this right now, which is, okay, let's go back to Romancing the Stone, where, if you'll remember...
That I have seen many times.
Kathleen Turner leaves little notes all over her apartment for herself. In The Fall Guy, there's a character who does that, and it's not the main character. It's pretty funny, though, because it just, reminded me of that. But I feel like right now there are 3 different things taped to my computer. Like the outside of my computer monitor.
Yeah, that is like my whole life, but yes.
And I feel like one more and I'm in Kathleen Turner land.
I have so many sticky notes in my office, though.
Oh, really?
It's
I'm not a big sticky note person.
Well, do you see? You have been.
I've been there. Yeah.
This whole thing was covered with the plot of Storms for a long time, and now there are just 3 random little stickies that have to go in the revision, which I'm doing right now.
It's weird to me that they're behind you.
You know why? Because for years, felt like years, for months, it was just too much, to be in front of me. It was better if I had the whole thing articulated behind. And also, nobody can see this, but I have a very large print of a painting in my office that's behind glass. So it was just also just a good place to put sticky notes. And so that's where it was. And now that's just where all my notes for Storms go.
I love talking about people's workflow. I'm always fascinated. And tell me about your weird little brain, Sarah.
My weird little brain is weird. That is really all there is. I mean, I use sticky notes almost exclusively.
Mr. Reed's Romance is a big sticky note guy, and then they get sticky notes on top of sticky notes, and they become sticky note, long, skinny sticky notes.
So I have a present that maybe you could give him. Father's Day is coming up. Maybe this would be, and I don't know, there's no reason, he's not your father, so.
No.
But if you wanted to get him something little and that he might find very useful, I have these things in the shower called Aqua Notes.
I've tried to give him these and he just was
he's not for them. There have been definitely moments where I have plotted the end of an entire book in the shower and then left all of the notes on the shower wall, which is we live in an apartment that has in a building we live in a row house that has one shower. So then Victoria and Eric are just in there.
Reading the end of the book. You spoiled it, Sarah. This is a spoiler-free shower. Come on.
Yeah, spoiler, they get together in the end. So can I tell you a story?
Yes, please do. Wait, should we introduce ourselves first?
Oh, yeah. Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels, and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor. And you're going to tell us a story.
I am going to tell you a story. And I'm going to remember to take a picture of this so that it can be now people can look at it.
Okay,
I will dump it. I will put it in the folder with the recording so it goes to wherever it needs to go.
Perfect.
So Eric and I, the other day, my daughter takes improv classes on Saturday mornings. And as you all know from listening to the podcast, I have been writing all the time. And so I haven't been with them really on the weekends. But last weekend, I went with them to improv and my daughter went to class, and then Eric and I were walking around Williamsburg in Brooklyn, which is where we had Fated Mates Live.
Right.
So some of you have been there, but Williamsburg is this very, very cute area. There's lots to look at, lots to do. And so we were kind of wandering in and out of thrift stores and other places. And we walked into this place that now I am certain I have read about on some New York, something, because it was I mean, honestly, it's like a hoarder's dream. It's like a hoarder's paradise. It's like a, what are they called? Like just a junk shop.
Okay.
Like,
Like a thrift store?
yeah, like a thrift store, but not clothing. Like
Oh, okay.
old
Like
furniture
stuff.
and like
Yeah.
doorknobs and like just whatever. Like weird Christmas decorations and old like.
I'm also though like, how is that store staying in business in Williamsburg? I
So
can't
here's
imagine
the
the rents are
thing,
cheap.
right? It is a full million years old. It has to be. And so I'm there, and like just to give you a sense, it's packed. It's like there's no, I mean, definitely the fire department has not been in there in a while. It's like so difficult. I feel like there's a real egress problem in this place. And there's a elderly woman sitting at a table kind of by the door. And she's just, her job is like, basically while we were there, this lady came in and was taking a picture of like something that was like very high up on a wall. And this woman just like barked at her and was like, no photos. And then we all sort of turned because it was like very vicious. It was like a very like intense, like no photos. And the woman was like, yes, but I'm taking a picture of like something way up in the corner. And she was like, no photos. And later, Eric and I were talking. We were like, what a weird policy. Like, now in this day and age, like photos are how you get
People
like
to come
that's
in. Yeah.
promotion. That lady was going to put that on her Instagram page, and like you could have gotten people come in to buy that ratty old dress that's hanging up on the wall for some reason, right? No photos. She's very cranky. She's not nice. But there was a giant Tupper, and so like I found myself, because I gravitate towards this kind of thing, in front of a like at least a dozen Tupperware containers, like big Tupperware buckets full of just paper goods, like
Okay. Sure.
postcards, letters, like stuff that they've clearly like bought at estate sales or like seen places, like personal stuff. And one of these buckets is full of just photographs. And it's like photograph it's just junk, like largely just like pictures of like someone's cat, or like a blurry picture of a man like standing in front of a mountain, like just. And I really like am drawn to these as a concept, as like a, I think just as a writer and also as a person, like these kind of like these like lost memories, right?
I love that
So
kind of stuff too.
I start digging through. So Eric's, whatever, wandering off. And I start digging through this big Tupperware bin of photographs, just like looking through them. And I'm like upending, like I'm sort of like digging deep into the bottom of this giant bin. And I turn up this photograph of two people like on a pier, like at the water somewhere. And I look, and I've been turning over all these pictures and they're all blank on the back. Like there's nothing. And I found, and this one has writing on the back, and it says Madeline Headley and Arthur Oturo, April 1928. And so I was like, I'm buying this picture, like of Madeline and Arthur. And I paid 65 cents for this like tiny little picture. And it's been sitting here, and I'm like, I'm going to try and find these people. Cause like, wouldn't it be nice if this like lost memory, like if somebody emailed you and was
Those
like,
are my
so
grandparents or something, right?
yeah, I
Exactly.
was in this like junk store in Williamsburg and I found this picture and I think they're your great grandparents or whatever. Like, I would be so thrilled if somebody did that. So that's my project. And that's my little story. Like, finding somebody else's memories. We have this picture, I think you've seen it in our dining room, of like it's a picture from the 40s, the late 40s, of a subway car like packed with people.
Yeah.
And it's just like a photograph of the door of the subway, and it's just like
People.
packed.
Yeah.
And I bought it from a guy also in Williamsburg who had like found a bunch of negatives and
Yeah.
developed them,
That's
and
cool.
then like made all these prints. And I gave it to Eric for as a gift because I was like, I don't know, there's something like, it's nice to think about that those people's family, like those people are gone now,
Right.
but like
Here they are. Yeah.
here they are.
You know, it's funny because I have thought a lot. I'm sure I'm not the only one. We talk about, you know, like the ephemeral nature of digital archives, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I
Like
mean, if
these
you don't
Tupperware
have,
bins are
yeah, right. What there are
no
people
one's
just
gonna
don't
call
have.
our great grandchildren and say, we think we have
We
pictures of
think
your
we have
mom.
pictures, yeah, because once our phones all die, right?
Right.
So I do think sometimes about like maybe every year I should just say like, okay, what are 10 photos from this year that are worth
There is
printing, right?
an app, I think, that
Of
does
course, there
this.
has to be,
And then
right?
they print them and send them to you, or at least
Yeah.
there was.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I also think a lot about like the lost art of letter writing or postcards or you know what I mean? And you and I have like occasionally written letters, but like
No. Those little, you know who's a letter writer is Erin Leaf from Learning the
mm,
Tropes. She has, during the pandemic, she like got involved with like some pen pal group, and she
fun.
has like 15 pen pals all over the world, and like she goes to visit them now. It's so
I love
cool.
that. That is really cool. So
Um the so pen pals are fun. What was I going to say about, oh, well no, when so Little Romance, you probably have photo albums of when he was little.
when he was really little. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But like not after he was 3 or 4,
no,
right?
we made a photo album of her first year, like for
Yeah.
Christmas, because she's a December baby. So like for
Right.
Christmas that year, we gave the grandparents that photo album, and then we never did it again.
Yeah.
And now she's 10.
Well, maybe that'll be a good 10-year-old.
Oh, you know what? Maybe that will be like, maybe that's what we should do for her. Like, yeah, that we should do that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Right. The elementary school years. It's like a nice
Yeah, like do it for like
transition
over the
point, right.
summer.
Yeah,
like before
exactly.
she starts middle school. Here's your life until now.
Right.
You know, and the cool thing is that when you do these books, they're not like photo albums. They're like
They're like books, of
They're
course.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
you can add like text and
No, of course. So yeah, there's you
I
can
mean,
find
there is something
Arthur and
to the
Madeline
idea.
and
Yeah.
make a photo album book for
There is
for me.
something to the idea of doing it over a long period of time, because then like it is the special things. It's like the things
Right.
you remember. It's
Right.
not like, you know, that random picture of her blurry in a garden.
Although those are also kind of funny. Like, let's be for real.
Yeah.
Right.
So
A little bit of both.
no, that's a good point. We should do that.
Memories. What are you gonna do?
I know.
Well,
Anyway, so that's it. That's banter now. And none of this has anything to do with our topic today. It's just
No.
stuff that is in my head.
It's true. Well, that's I think like I
If
think
you
we've talked about this. It's the beginning of like summer is like a fresh start for our brains
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So it doesn't
If-
surprise me.
You like just listening to whatever's in our head, you can join the Patreon and you get a full episode of whatever's in our head every month.
Yeah.
And yeah, find out more about that at fatedmates.net/Patreon.
Yeah.
You also get access to the Discord, which is really the money there.
That's the money for sure. Yeah.
There are, 1,000 other members on the Discord. It's, as Jen says, it's drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much going on. I had lunch with Megan Frampton this week, and she was like, I went on there one time and it was too much. I was like, Megan, same. It's hard. But if you really love just talking about romance with people, there's nowhere better.
There was so I think I've mentioned there's like a question of the day.
Yep.
And this week, I think it was one of the questions of the day was like, where do you go onto the Discord and where do you not go? And it was like all the people who were like, I never go here, but I always go here. And I think, it's funny because I've been really stressed to send to school, but the one place I go every day is there's like a channel for just sharing your scores on the New York Times games. And so I at least every morning share my Wordle score because it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to put my Wordle score up there. But
do you start with the same word every time?
I do start with the same word every time. Do you want to know what it is?
Of course I want to know what it is.
Audio. I'm a person who's like, get rid of the vowels first and then everything makes sense to me.
Interesting. I start with a word every time, and it is wrist.
Interesting.
Because I don't want it to be easy. I don't want to know.
Well, you got to an S and a T and an R
Yeah,
in
I
there.
do
How
have an
hard
S
can
and a
it
T,
be?
but there's only one
One vowel.
vowel in there,
Yeah.
and it's an I, which is uncommon. So
Right.
I never get like it's very rare that I get a 2 or a 3. I get
No,
I
I
get
don't.
mostly I'm a 4 person.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly a 4 person too, honestly. I'm not super invested in getting it in less turns. I just want to get it every day. Like that's enough for me.
Yeah. Today I really struggle with connections, and then I got it in a clinch on the last try.
I don't even know if I tried it. Like I have no idea what was I doing this morning. I should have, but whatever.
But I am now like fully obsessed with Strands, the new game, which I can't figure out why it's not in the app yet.
I don't know until they figure it out.
It's still in beta, but
Still
you guys, if you
mode.
don't know, there's a New York Times game called Strands.
It's a word
just
search, everyone.
Strands, New York Times. It's word search, but it's like on theme.
Yeah, thematic word search.
So like it tells you, it gives you a clue as to what the theme is, and then you have to sort of figure out what it is. And I find it.
I'm always fascinated by the ones that I find like super easy or super hard. Like there was one about plants and I got them all. And I was like, I don't even like plants. How the fuck did I get this?
Yeah.
You know, and then you get one about like seashells or something. You're like, Jesus, I don't know.
Yeah.
I live near a lake.
The obvious one isn't in there, right?
Right. Exactly.
I live near a lake. Oh, I have something else to talk to you about.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Except you're not going to be able to help me. I actually want to talk to like Linda or B and her books about this because they're both in Wisconsin, right?
Well, Linda's in basically. I mean,
close enough.
Close enough.
I don't know if this matters. We, as you know, are Top Chef watchers here in our house. And it's fine. You don't have to.
And I'm like, you lost me already. You lost me in Top Chef. You lost me in Wisconsin.
So every year in Top Chef, they go to a place. And it's like New York or Austin or London or whatever, LA, Houston, Boston. They're in Wisconsin right now.
So is it just about cheese and beer?
Season 20, it's Wisconsin.
Sure.
Listen, Wisconsin's tourism board did the right thing here. They brought Top Chef in, and now I'm like, oh, I know all this information about the food culture of Wisconsin.
Told you, cheese and beer.
It's cheese and beer, but also something called a fish boil, which looks as gross as it sounds. So they put fish in a giant. So they go to a beach, on a lake. So already the Rhode Islander in me is like, but is it really a beach?
It is in fact a beach.
Is whatever they are gonna eat actually fish because it came out of a lake? Listen, I'm very judgy. Rhode Island has the most coastline per capita.
Listen, you cling to that, little Miss Rhode Island. You cling to what you've got going on there.
My Californian husband is like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, more people per coastline. And he's like, no. I'm like, 85% of the state is in like 10 miles of coastline. He's like, that's it. It's a postage stamp. Anyway, so listen, like Wisconsinites or Wisconsiners who are listening to us, listen, I support you and I love you. And I watched this episode with like absolute fascination because Jen, what they do is they take potato.
But this is not a Wisconsin thing. This is a Louisiana thing.
No, it's not a crab boil or a fish fry. It's a fish boil.
In a bag, in a plastic bag, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Let me walk you through this. Listen, we're getting to, again, this is not relevant to romance novels, but everyone's going to have to listen to it. Eric will probably take it out, to be honest.
He probably will. He'll be like, what the fuck, Sarah?
Okay, so they take white fish that they've fished out of the lake, local white fish.
Okay.
And then they put it in a big bucket, like a steel vat, like a giant pot on wood. They like build a fire on the beach. They put a giant pot on top of it. They fill it with water, put fish and potatoes and like possibly corn, but I can't remember, something else in there, and just salt, like nothing. And then they boil the shit out of it. And then, I kid you not, this is the exact words that the expert on fish boil said. All the bits, like inside, turn into scum on top of the water.
Oh dear.
And so to make sure that you don't get that like scummy junk all over your food, they throw a gallon of kerosene into the fire, create an enormous fireball that burns off the scum, and then remove the fish from the water, and then you eat it. Wisconsin, I have questions.
I mean, I do not have
But
any
if
answers
you
for this.
are
Yeah.
in Wisconsin and you do not watch Top Chef, but like you want to see this like great Wisconsin tradition honored in like a really shocking kind of way, you've got to go watch Top Chef. I don't know what episode it is, but it's this season, and it's like a fish boil season.
I mean, look, everyone has their dangerous thing they're doing with fire.
But
you can deep fry a turkey. How safe is that? Probably not at all.
No, it's not safe at all.
That's
but
my
also
point.
like watching this man throw a gallon of kerosene into like an open flame on a beach while there are people around. It's too much.
Too much.
Also, it feels like you don't want kerosene like burning the scum off something you're about to eat. You don't want scum on something you're about to eat. How about that? It just all sounds I have questions. We don't do this in New England.
Answers.
We bury the stuff in the ground, as is custom.
Sure, and everyone else is like, "It's covered in dirt, Sarah. What the fuck?" I mean, I just think.
Listen,
I don't know. Tell you everybody.
The Midwest with your giant lakes. I support you.
They really are giant lakes, everybody.
I know. I was like, what lake do you think that is? It's Michigan, right? Still?
Yes.
Up there?
Yes.
God, so many states. It's so many states in one lake.
Yeah, I've told this story before, but I will tell it again.
The sun has risen, the sun has set. You're still on Michigan yet.
That is Texas.
I know.
That's Texas. But yeah, no. Lake Michigan's huge. And we're also talking, there's a ferry that goes across Lake Michigan from like Green Bay on one side to Petoskey or something on the other side of Michigan. And it takes many hours, I think, to cross Lake Michigan on this ferry.
Did I ever tell you about the time that I was
SS Badger? I'm just telling you.
All right. I flew into Chicago once, and I was supposed to connect through to Lansing. And there was a terrible storm somewhere in one of those places. And all the flights were grounded. And I said, well, can I just rent a car and drive there? How far could it be? They are both on this lake. And the guy was like, it's like an 8-hour drive. I was like,
and you're like, wait, what?
Okay, fine. Well, the New Englander in me does not understand. Like, I have no capacity for the size of states outside of. Anyway, let's talk about witches. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Blue Box Press, publishers of C. Travis Rice's Sapphire Dawn, the fourth book in the Sapphire Cove series, featuring strong-willed heroes who release the shame that blocks their heart's desires. I love it.
I know, me too.
I love it.
Listen, so in this one, we have... okay. Donnie Bascombe has made a lot of people's fantasies come true in his life. First in the bedroom or on the set of his adult entertainment studio. But his best friend, Logan Murdoch, who is the first, one of the heroes from the first book, has just presented him with this really tall order, which is put on the wedding of the century at the Sapphire Cove Resort. And the new, sort of special events coordinator is Richard Merriweather. He has devoted his life to planning fairy tale weddings for celebrities and royalties. But when his own husband broke his heart, he just had to sort of go and do something, right? And Sapphire Cove and working there and remaking that whole office, the special events office, is just the distraction he needs to get his life back on track. So when the groom's brash and sexy best friend, that's Donnie, shows up, there's a powerful attraction between them. But Richard he does not do hookups and Donnie does not do relationships.
Oh no, what will they do?
I bet they're going to figure it out, Sarah, and I cannot wait to find out how. So watch Donnie and Richard along with, of course, like, you know, because it's the wedding from Logan's book, we get to sort of revisit those old characters, and we are going to plan the wedding of the decade, but maybe the relationship of the future for Donnie and Richard. I love it.
Sapphire Dawn is out this week, and you can read it and the entire Sapphire Cove series, which is excellent, right now in print or ebook or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. Thanks to Blue Box Press and C. Travis Rice for sponsoring this week's episode.
Today's topic, as Sarah has just said, is essentially like not just witches, but the paranormal rom-com. We are not talking about the witches of Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark, right? We are not talking about
kind of witch. Alixta.
Yes, we're not talking about like that kind of witches. We're talking about like the like frothy, fun, rom-com-y kind of paranormal witch. And it doesn't even just have to be witches, although most of mine are, because I think that those can be really fun books. And I will admit that when the witch renaissance happened in romance, I was like, are these only Halloween books? Somebody help me out. Right? Is this just like a Halloween thing? And people swore up and down to me.
No,
that
they are
were
not. They are not just for Halloween.
Witches
are for every day.
Witches are for year round.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, like there's like a in pop culture, like, you know, this goes back to Bewitched and right. There's like a long standing kind of,
man, did I love that show,
right? A long standing kind of like fun, frothy, like silly kind of witch show. So anyway, and part of the reason I'd suggested this to Sarah, sometimes when we're thinking about like what we should talk about, we're like, well, what have we been reading lately that we might want to talk about? And I have been reading a series by Molly Harper set, ready, in Lake Huron.
Oh, Great Lakes.
A little island off of Michigan in Lake Huron.
Perfect.
And I was like, so there, we got there. There's
and
our
it's
segue.
And it's a witch
and
series.
It's a witch series. So
right.
I guess so I can think of I don't know if we want to like, I guess maybe talk about like what this does. But the thing about these books to me is, I don't know. Like, to me, it's funny. They do kind of seem like they almost predate like the rom-com. And I think it is because of Bewitched and things like that. Or, you know what I mean? Or like, what was that? Like there are a lot. What was that movie? Oh my God. A Generation Below Us. There's a Halloween-y movie that people love with witches.
Are you talking about The Craft?
No, I'm not.
We Are the Weirdos, mister?
No,
Terrific.
I'm not talking about The Craft. That is the different other kind of witch. And I'm not talking about the witches.
I guess it is Oh, you're talking about Practical Magic?
Oh no, I do really like Practical Magic.
Practical Magic is great. It's such a fucking great book. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's actually a movie that I think probably I'm about, like, I could probably show it to my 10-year-old.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Almost there. I am talking about Hocus Pocus.
Oh, Hocus Pocus. That's a kid's movie.
It is a kid's movie, right? And it's funny because it's not a movie that I ever saw. I'm like a little too old for it. But it is definitely a movie that I think like is part of that like beloved kind of, you know, like those fun
goofy
witches,
witch movie.
Yes.
But
right?
also there's The Witches of Eastwick, right?
Not a goofy witch movie.
Not a goofy witch movie, but the movie itself, the Jack Nicholson movie, like it's funny. There's some very good dark humor in that movie. Yeah. Then there's the one, what is it? Death Becomes Her. Is that a witch movie or is that just about death? Like
I think it might be.
I think so because there's like Goldie Hawn. There are all those like camera tricks in it.
Well, there's also like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, right? Like, so I mean, I think there's like a lot of like family friendly witch fare.
Can we just talk about witches? So I want to talk about witches in general.
Okay, before you do that, I just want to finish my thought, which is, I think the reason a lot of us glom onto like the fun witches is because our first introduction to them were these like Disney-fication witches.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Like
That's all
just
I'm
a fun
saying.
witch
Yeah,
doing witchy stuff.
I think that's like a reason why it feels right.
Yep.
That's all I was going to say. Okay.
I think there's that, and I'm going to add yes, and as I say in improv, witches, witching, witchery,
Yeah.
witchcraft. I'm getting there.
I got you.
Witchcraft is really the realm. It's the place. It's the realm of women.
Yes.
Like wizards, fine, whatever. Warlocks, whatever, fine. But like in culture, in media,
yeah,
witches are the kind of embodiment of feminine power, right? Like these are women who, when they band together, also community, right? Like when they band together, they can do immense things. They have incredible power. Like think about Buffy, right? Think about Willow.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like when Willow sort of comes into her like intense power, she really gives Buffy a run for her money.
Yes.
And so I think there is something really that sort of naturally makes witches naturally predisposed to romance. Or maybe romance naturally predisposed to witches, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it turns the whole paranormal thing on its head because largely in early paranormal, when the paranormal power was held by men, by patriarchy, right? Like it was held by these like massive men whose jobs it was to like set the world to rights or to ruin the world, or like, this was the like magic was the realm of men. And if there was a witch, she was removed in a lot of ways from those stories. And then, so when witches came to romance, largely, you're right, through rom-com, I think.
Yeah.
Early right. I'm talking about rom-com in the early thousands.
Yeah, no,
right?
Me too, yeah.
Then we started really seeing, like, it was the first time we really saw paranormal power given to women.
Another thing I would like to add that I always really thought was interesting about witches, and it made me think of it when you mentioned Willow, is it's one of the few paranormal things, I guess, where it's always been really clear to me that like you can make a choice about whether or not to be good or bad. Right? Like right. So you could traffic in using these powers for good or for evil, but
there were like real rules to witchcraft,
right? There was like white witches, and I mean, this all seems real racist fucking now that I'm saying it, of course, right? But like, dark witches, or like the things that you could traffic in terms of like choosing whether or not to be good or bad. And, or to use your power for things you didn't need to use it for or whatever. And, I think that there's also ways in which that trips people up. So for example, in The Witcher, right, which is like that show, the fact that there's a woman who is essentially disabled, and then when she like gets her witchy power, she becomes beautiful. It's like there's some real bullshit that happens too. And I think it comes packaged along with, these ideas of good and evil and how people use their powers and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying that this is like, I just think that like sometimes when something is very gendered, right, like witchcraft, sometimes the bullshit becomes just like even more apparent. You know what I mean? Because there's not like, you can sort of like remove like the static that like having men in the picture, kind of creates sometimes. And I think that that's something that's just like, I want to call out, right? Like there's a lot of times that like witchy properties in pop culture can really just be as, fucked up about messaging as anything else, I guess I'd say.
I mean, yeah, of course.
Right.
I think that also there is something embedded in our sort of bodily autonomy tinctures and tonics thing here, where we talk about, especially in historicals, tinctures and tonics are the realm of heroines, right? Often heroines, definitely women.
Yeah.
And if a heroine in these early historicals, or even now, is dabbling in this kind of like medicinal herbal stuff,
Yeah.
there is always the fear that like she's a witch,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because like whenever we place power in the hands of a female character in these books, we are like, there has to be some reason why she is more powerful than the men on the page. Not in the author's mind, but in the character, like in the mind, in the perception of the other characters in the book. And so I sort of keep coming back to this piece of the puzzle where like these books do really center that, that power, and really provide an overt example of power, of how power can work.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why like it's especially interesting to me, like the witchy rom-com, because often they take power off the table, or they are it as community essentially instead, right? Like takes the place or whatever. And so I think that that's like also just like a really interesting way, because a lot of my books are not, or it's like power, like they haven't figured out how to harness or use their power yet or whatever, right? So it's like, so yeah, I mean, I think it is really interesting to think about kind of like what the books are doing when they're rom-coms versus when they are, Callista or Elixta, sorry, versus when it's, a little coven of witches up in Lake Michigan.
Right.
Okay, so are all your books witch books?
Were they not supposed to be?
I have one that I feel like is witch adjacent, but it's part of a series, so maybe I'll talk about that at the end if you feel like it. I can. Okay.
I don't have a rule here. It's fine. No, all of my books are witch books. They are all the characters are witches. So
okay.
I want to start because I want to talk about Jill Barnett before we talk about anybody else.
Oh yeah.
So
Jill Barnett. My whole brain just was like downloading.
So listen, I got to tell you, I recently reread this book and it absolutely holds up. Like, this was published in 1993. Jill Barnett was like at the height of her Jill Barnettdom. Everybody was reading her, and she published this book called Bewitching, and the premise is Joy, the main character's name is Joy. Her name is Joyous Macquarie. It's set in Scotland. She is a witch who can't quite. I mean, the reason why I want to talk about her first is because we talked about rom-coms and like rom-com witches and rom-coms like always have some sort of like problem with their power.
Right.
Joy has a big problem. She has come into her power, but she is a very messy witch in terms of like she's still not quite nailed all of the ways of doing this. And then there's like a worse problem because her aunt, who was kind of her teacher in all of this, like is pulled away on witch business. And so like Joy is sort of stuck there, and she's kind of told like, please don't make a mess. Like it would probably be best if you don't, witch around here. Anyway, cut to the Duke of Belmore, Alec, a classic. And Alec is in love, or at least like supposed to be marrying some woman, some lady, some like perfect lady. And like a soothsayer, like an old woman tells him, like prophesizes that he is not marrying the right person. Like he is not going to marry this woman. He's going to marry something else. And then Joy and Alec kind of like end up together in like one kind of chaotic night where she like misspeaks an incantation, and there's like a little bit of like shenaniganing and nobody's quite sure what happens. But Alec is like, oh, wait, she is like, then she's the woman I'm supposed to marry. Like, there something has happened with the other woman. And so he gets married. So basically he's like, and he is enchanted by her. And the question is like, is he enchanted by her because she's beautiful and perfect in every way and like green eyed and she has like mink hair, like mink sable, like she's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Has she enchanted him because she is a witch, or has she enchanted him because they are like they are meant to be? They are for each other. And here's the problem. He doesn't even know she's a witch. And then they get married and he finds out she's a witch. And then he's like, oh no, you did in fact enchant me.
Oh.
Trademark witch, right? And it's like this, but they're already married and they've consummated, and like now he's married to a witch and he doesn't know if he actually loves her, and she's such a messy witch that she's like, maybe I did enchant him. And it's really very sweet. And like, it's just like a classic Scottish medievalish historical,
I love it.
straight from 1993, but it holds up great. She's like very sweet. He's very sexy. They are definitely destined for each other. And it's really lovely to see this kind of like starchy, stiff Duke like have his entire life upended by like all the crazy things that she does. Like she like makes the furniture dance by accident, and she's like, none of the clocks in his house tell the right time. And it's just really fun.
Yeah, my favorite old witchy historical were those time travel ones by Teresa Medeiros.
Oh, of course. I remember those.
Okay. You guys, we are really going back into the soup now.
I think we should do this in chronological order.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Grand Central Publishing, publishers of trailblazer Iris Johansson and Roy Johansson's new book, Flashback.
So this is the 11th book in the Kendra Michael series. And in this series, Kendra uses her heightened powers of deduction to draw out a serial killer who has not been seen or heard of in 15 years. So these two sisters, Chloe and Sloane Morgan, were only children when their mother was the second victim of the Bayside Strangler. They have been trying their entire adult lives to figure out his identity, but they have suddenly vanished. Were they getting too close to the truth? Kendra Michaels is on the case, armed with a box of photos, videos, police reports, and notes gathered by the sisters over the years, plus her own extraordinary senses from being blind and recovering her sight via a revolutionary surgical procedure. Kendra follows the trail of clues. Little does she realize that her search is about to unleash a long dormant serial killer in San Diego. What is going to happen?
Iris Johansson is a trailblazing romance author who basically was there at the beginning of the romantic suspense genre. You know this one is going to deliver romantic suspense on every level. If you would like to read Flashback, you can do that right now in print, ebook, or audiobook, thanks to Grand Central and Iris and Roy Johansson for sponsoring this week's episode.
Teresa Medeiros, am I saying her name right?
I've always said it Medeiros, but
there were 2 books in this series, I think, and they were time travel books. Okay, and the first one was called, hold on, let me find it. I'm like trying to find. Okay, apparently I'm A Touch of Magic, and the other one was A Touch of Enchantment. Let me make sure I have those in the right order. It might be the opposite way. Oh, no, sorry. Breath of Magic was the first one. Touch of Enchantment was the second one. Okay, and in Breath of Magic, essentially, it is a time travel book forward. So an enchantress from like 17th century Massachusetts essentially like collides with this like modern guy who so she flies 300 years into the future, and then they have kids. They have a daughter, and Tabitha, and Tabitha is their daughter, and she gets catapulted back into the past in the second book, which is Touch of Enchantment. And that's the one I remember thinking was so fucking funny when I was a kid. Like basically like there's this she gets, and it's like also though, like by the way, everybody like check content warnings on these books because this was a different time. And when she gets transported back, there's like a bad guy in the village who essentially is like raped every single woman in the village from, I mean, like, we're, and like, it really does not shy away from this at all. And Tabitha kind of teams up with Colin to like get rid of this guy, but he's just back from the Crusades. That's its own problem, right? I mean, so these are books that really like were just had no fear about doing things probably that today's authors would not do. But the thing I really vividly remember is they're like leading the charge to like go take down the bad guy at his castle, and she teaches them all to like sings songs from Les Mis. So they're all like marching along, singing
One
like,
day more.
do you hear that?
That's
Right?
terrific.
And and then like there's a part where she gets like real nervous and like summons up a bunch of like Big Macs, and the guy's like, what is this? It's a special sauce, and I just was like, I am so simple, because I remember thinking it was really funny. So I think that like a lot of these books, like you said, in the 90s, like witchy rom-coms were a thing in the 90s for sure. So yeah, again, be careful reading them, but at least mine, but they're
Wait,
great.
so I'm trying to think. There are lots of other historicals that kind of do this, or books from the 90s that kind of do this magic piece, but I'm trying to think of whether there are others. Do you have others on your list from long ago? I have something from the early thousands next, but I want to.
You know what? It's funny because I was looking, and I think what I had is like I had like a book, and I couldn't find it. I was trying to look for it today. Hold on. That had like, I don't know if you remember this, back in the heyday of the mass market. There were like they would put out every once in a while a mass market paperback that had like several like novellas in it by different authors.
Sure.
Right. And you would read these, and it would be your way of sort of like getting to know a few different authors.
Right.
And I definitely had one of those that had three like authors in it, and I cannot remember what it was called. So it doesn't matter. But I mean, I definitely remember things like that too happening. And I think like the reason I remember is some of these were like Jenny Cruzy, the Jenny Cruzy era.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
So I don't remember the title, but.
All right. Well, since we're in the back catalog, I want to talk about a book that I believe is very out of print. Hang on, I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh,
so that I
who
can
else wrote probably some witchy books? I bet Nora Roberts has some.
Well, yeah, there's that O'Dwyer trilogy, but that's later, I think. I don't think that was.
Yeah, I don't.
That's set in Ireland,
right? But like, yeah, of course, right. So I mean, I just think, and I don't know if they were like full on witches as much as like a spot of magic,
Yeah. So okay, when I was a baby, like right out of the womb of writing, right? I met a woman named Annette Blair at an event in Rhode Island because we were both kind of Rhode Islanders who wrote romance.
I feel like we are really in the archives, and I'm liking it because I'm like Annette Blair.
Yeah. You remember Annette Blair. She's like been around for a long time, I think. And so she was writing at the time, and I'm pulling it up to catch because I want to know what the pub date was. Okay, in 2007, she was writing a series called The Triplet Witches. And it was about three like triplets, identical triplets, who also happen to be witches. And the first one is called Sex and the Psychic Witch.
That's the one I've got.
Have you read this?
Yes, Sarah.
You've read this. Oh my God. You're like the only
yeah.
person I know. Fated Mates. You're like
Fated
the only
Mates.
person I've ever met who has read these books. And I met Annette at this event, and she had these books on her table, and I bought all 3 of them because I was like, this is so cute. And the covers are illustrated, but like adorable. The characters on the covers like have real personality. So these are deeply rom-com, like full on rom-com. These characters are, it's like practical magic sass. And they are, so this first one, it's Harmony, Storm, and Destiny. And those are the heroines of each of the books. There are 3 books in the series. The first one begins with, and like I went looking for this book today because I was like, I know I owned all 3 of them and I can't find them. So the first one, she is like, she's in a it starts super wacky. She's in like a vintage dress shop. She's like called to, she puts on this like vintage dress, and she has like it like claims her. The dress is like, it acknowledges that she is a witch and like binds itself to her, and sewed into the hem of this dress is a wedding ring. And then she has no choice. She has to go to, she is like, this wedding ring summons her to a castle.
Of course.
Where a man named King Paxton, is like grumpy beast in a castle vibes here. And then like she tumbles into this castle where like she has no choice. Like basically she realizes that like she doesn't have any choice. Like there is like something has to happen. Like there has to be love inside this castle for her to be like untethered from this this like prophecy or whatever it is. And then she ends up falling in love with King.
Of course.
And then the other 2 books in the series are also like incredibly cute. And again, like I had them all, and now I don't have them all, and I'm going to try and buy them because like I remember really loving this series.
Yeah.
And it is out of print. But listen, what I remember about this series is that it was laugh out loud funny. And I remember that everybody I talked to about this series, or like everything I read about the series, and today when I was on Goodreads, I was reminded of this. People were like, like it's so wacky and silly and funny. And like the 2007 was
not
the
what
heyday
paranormal
of like,
was back in the day.
No,
right?
like it was the wrong vibe for 2007, but it is 1000% the right vibe for 2024. And so what I really want is for Annette to put these books
we gotta find
in
Annette.
print.
We'd be like, Annette, put them back up on Kindle Unlimited. We'll sell 1 million copies for you.
I know. It's so, because I don't think they were published by Berkeley, but I don't even think you can get them. You can't get them anymore.
No, you got to look for used copies.
Yeah. So it's a big bummer.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Like, I really, guys.
I really wish I'm literally, before this episode goes live, gonna buy all 3 of them on like eBay or whatever, so that I have them. But Annette, I remember these books, and I think they're really great. And what I will say also is that it looks like from Annette's Goodreads page that she has been writing witches ever since.
Yeah.
Like. Right. Historical witches, I think, and also contemporary witches. So if you're looking for like a new fun witch writer, maybe Annette Blair is your person.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Lumi Labs, and they are going to be bringing you free THC gummies delivered legally nationwide after you listen to this ad.
This is pretty cool. So you all know we're super excited to have Lumi back as a sponsor. A lot of you who've been longtime listeners know that Lumi was one of the first sponsors for Fated Mates, and we don't do that many ads for products that are not romance novels. So, but we do both use this product. Jen has a favorite flavor, even. They taste pretty delicious. And these are THC gummies delivered nationwide. So, Lumi gummies, they used to be called microdose gummies, but this is now what they're called, Lumi gummies. They have a whole rainbow of flavors and feels, and they offer sativa, hybrid, and indica effects. So you can choose the kind of vibe you're looking for. People use them for all different things, right? Like you can use THC gummies for anxiety reduction, for workout recovery, for sleep. A lot of people use them. Jen uses them right before she goes to sleep. I have a friend who uses gummies. Like she doesn't drink, but if she goes to a party or a dinner party or cocktail party, she'll take a gummy beforehand. So like she's just relaxed and has more fun. We are big fans of it here at the podcast, and Lumi is back and they've got a better deal than ever. And this involves free gummies. So you can go to lumigummies.com. That's a new website, everyone, and use the code FATED50, 50. So FATED50 for free gummies with a limited time $50 off coupon. If you're listening to this ad after the summer, it's probably too late, but you can still use the code always Fated Mates for 30% off. But now you can go to lumigummies.com, use Fated50 at checkout, and get a free jar of gummies for a limited time and just try out the product. Again, that's Lumi Gummies and code FATED50.
They have tons of delicious flavors. And for everyone listening, I am happy to report a beautiful new website, but also they have a tincture. You can get a liquid now. And I just think
perfect for romance novels.
No one loves a tincture like us. So everybody, thank you. We hope that you will support Lumi Gummies. We both love them. Thanks to Lumi Labs for sponsoring this week's episode. We're happy to have you back.
I want to talk about Nora. Yeah, the Cousins O'Dwyer trilogy, which is set in County Mayo, Ireland. And Iona Sheehan goes back to the land, like she's like traced her roots back to County Mayo, and she gets there, like she has like nothing. She has instructions from her now dead grandmother to like return to her ancestors and like find her destiny. And of course she gets there. She finds her cousins who are other books in the series. And she happens to get there also and find a local stableman, Boyle McGrath, who is described in the cover copy of this book as cowboy,
hot, right?
Cowboy, pirate, wild, tribal horseman. He's 3 of her biggest fantasy weaknesses all in one. Listen, Nora Roberts knows the job.
Yes, she does.
So that is Dark Witch. And then the other 2 in that series are Shadow Spell and Blood Magic. And did I just buy all 3 so I could read them all again? I did.
You know, I feel like we could go back and basically do an interstitial that's like, here's a Nora Roberts book for every interstitial we've ever done where we didn't mention a Nora Roberts book.
That would be so fun.
Right?
Oh my God. But then I would just read 180
Nora Roberts
books.
I know. It's not a bad thing.
There is a Nora Roberts podcast though.
Is it really?
I think it's obviously not Nora.
No, but I mean,
Nora Roberts would
They will never run out of material.
Yeah, I think there is. Romancing the Shelf.
Amazing.
Yeah. They are Romancing the Shelf. Emily and I'm looking right now. Heidi and Emily are best friends who have been reading Nora Roberts' books for 20 years. And they are doing every single Nora Roberts and J.D. Robb book.
That is, wow.
Their most recent episode was The Witness. Right. So if you love Nora Roberts, go listen to Heidi and Emily.
You go, girls. Okay. All right. So
maybe we should have them on.
We should have them on. Okay. I'm finally ready to talk about my Lake Huron, Michigan wishes.
Wishes.
Okay. So everybody, this is a series by Molly Harper called I think Starfall Point. And if you have never read a Molly Harper book, I'm going to tell you, you're really in for a treat. And what I mean when I say that is like, and especially if you're an audiobook person, like her audiobook, she has like a longtime audiobook narrator, Amanda Ronconi, who's great. But like Molly Harper just like knows how to write a great rom-com. She knows how to like make like all the quirky people in the town and all of the interactions between everybody, and I just feel like she's like one of those authors I sort of forget about, and then I'll like kind of rediscover her and be like, "Oh my god, why am I not reading more Molly Harper books?" So anyway, in this series, the first book is called Witches Get Stuff Done. And the second book, it comes out next month, I think. And it's called Big Bad Witch or something. Oh no, Big Witch Energy, obviously.
Sure.
So in the first book, okay, so it starts off with Riley Denton Everett. She is on this ferry going to this tiny little island in the middle of Lake Huron, where she has inherited like a home from her aunt. And on the ferry, she meets this other woman named, I think, Alice, and they like kind of meet, and there's this like a kind of weird like attraction, like zing between them. And it turns out that these two, along with the third woman who is going to be the second book, Big Witch Energy, and I can't remember her name right now, form a coven together. And what happens is Riley goes up to this home, this like crazy looking house, which I am convinced is based off the Winchester Mystery House in California, because the way it is described is just like there was always construction under it. And so there's all these like rooms that go to nowhere and stairways that end in, like walls and stuff like that. And Riley, when she gets to the front door, like presses the the doorbell, the buzzer or whatever, and it like pops open and takes like a bite of her blood and binds her to the house.
Oh no.
And it turns
out
that
is bad luck.
Yeah, and it turns out that this house that she has inherited is full of ghosts. And her family's like work has essentially that ghosts that in the mythology of the series, ghosts live they are like, they stay on Earth because they are tied to like an object or an item. And so her and her new coven essentially figure out who what the ghosts are attached to, and then move that attached item into this house where they can like kind of essentially have like a immortal cooling off period with all the other ghosts without freaking out all the people in town. It is awesome.
What a fun idea.
And that's it. This is Molly Harper. Like Molly Harper just has the most fun ideas. And then so like anyway, Edison is the town's hot librarian. He has no idea that ghosts exist, but he has been determined to get into this ancestral home because he's like, I'm the town's librarian and I want to know what's going on in there. And also it's really funny, he is afraid of water, so he lives on an island. So there's just like a lot of like wacky hijinks, and it turns out that like the home is haunted, and like there's like ghost butler who like lives there and is like the one who kind of teaches her everything. It's so fun. And I also Big Witch Energy comes out later this summer, but I read it and it's also super fun in that one. The author or the second woman in the coven, her is Caroline, and her teenage like high school boyfriend moves back and her family is cursed. And in that one, the coven tries to figure out like what the nature of the curse is and what caused it. So anyway, and I think just like these are really fun books. And I think the other thing that I liked about this in terms of like, is these three women are all older and they only discover they are witches when they find each other. So that like zap of electricity is essentially like their magic coming online. And then it's like the three of them like trying to figure out how to do magic. And often that
Nice.
is like
That's so cute. That's
it's
such a cute way of doing it.
yes. And if you are, and I'm going to say one more thing because I said the audiobooks are great. The first book, at least, is like a free borrow on Audible. So
Oh, fun.
you know what I mean? Like you don't even have to like buy it, which is get stuff done. You can just like listen now. I don't know. I just that seemed new for me and I was like, "Oh, you mean I can listen to it without having to spend a credit?" So, Molly Harper, she has written a million books. They are all as fun and as like imaginative and like really lean into like what you want from a rom-com and it's really cute. So that first one, which is out now, is called Witches Get Stuff Done.
So cute.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Um, so I also feel like the sort of, in many ways, the promise of the premise of a witch rom-com is that the magic will kind of bite them in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Witchful Thinking by Celestine Martin does this very well. So
Yeah.
there's, at first glance, I think what's cool about this book is it's a sort of very classic contemporary romance tee up that is overlaid with like the witch of it all. So Lucy, who is the main character, is like has not achieved, her high school reunion is coming up and she has not like really achieved anything that she said she was going to achieve, or that she's just realizing like she has not like been hustling. Her grandmother, who she was very close to, has died, and like because of that she knows she's a witch, and so, and like she's kind of like packed up her magic and like left it behind her because she's just like bummed. She's having a tough time. But her high school reunion is coming up, and so she makes this list of like all the things that she's like they're big fat largely lies, right? About like all the things she's going to do, or that she has done. And so what ends up happening is she like accidentally enchants this list, and then it starts to come true. And so, and she's like not able to stop herself from doing all the things that she's like said she was doing. So like, she's is forced to like sing karaoke, and she's like, she tells them that she's like she runs, like she runs like long form races, and then and so like she's sort of stuck in this like, oh no, I have to say yes to everything, and I have to do everything that is like kind of coming my way. And then on top of it, her old high school friend Alex, who is also a merman, just, of course, but only gets his tail on the full moon. Um, so he's a merman. He's like home also for the reunion, and he discovers his family has bought him a house across the street from Lucy's, and his house is jinxed, and he needs a witch to like unjinx it. And so they have to like work together. And Alex is planning on leaving. He travels the world because of course he does. And he's not planning, like he does not want to come back and be in this small town, but like ends up, obviously they end up having to like reconcile with how they feel for each other, and whether or not he's going to leave, and like whether or not she's going to come clean about like who she really is. And it does a lot of this kind of soul searching that we really love in a great contemporary, but with this kind of wacky magic over the top of it. And it's very cool.
Very fun. Very fun. Yeah, that's a great series. I think that there's a second one out called Kiss and Spell, correct?
Yes,
And
that's
I
right.
I feel like the third one, it just feels like must be coming soon. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Elemental Love is the series, but according to Goodreads, there are only two of them.
okay, so I would like to talk about Sarah Hawley's A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon.
Sarah Hawley, our
I
old
know.
friend from Wicked Wallflowers.
Exactly. And this book is super cute. I sometimes I like a real like archetype of these romances is that like I'm a bad witch somehow. But I was saying, sometimes I kind of struggle with the archetype of the witch book being like they're bad at their job. But I guess if they were really powerful, then they would be collecting taxes. So fine. Okay. Anyway, in A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, Mariel Spark, it starts off, she's in her kitchen with her two besties, and it has been prophesied that she will be like the most powerful witch in centuries of her family, but it has never come to pass. The only thing she is good at is like gardening and plants. And she does in fact have like a magical touch with them. Like they like are attracted to her and it's like really cute. They'll like kind of follow her plants, will like follow her around. But to her mother, who is, you know, like a really powerful teleporter or something, this is no kind of magical power, right? She doesn't want to hear it. So she's promised essentially Mariel that she can go and get like a PhD in, you know, magical plants if she practices her basic spell work. But instead she like accidentally blows up a chicken and you know,
Nice.
like literally like blows up a chicken and she's like, it's like a snuff film, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's gonna bake later that night and make some muffins or something, and her mom has made her promise to like try and, you know, teleport in the ingredients, like practice your spell work all the time. So she's sort of like,
Which does seem like just good sense.
sure, exactly. She accidentally teleports in a demon named Ozroth the Ruthless. And the problem with Ozroth the Ruthless is that demons in this world it's actually really clever. I feel like my grandmother's so clever. They take people's souls in exchange, right, for promises, like your typical demon stuff. But when they then use those souls to essentially like power the demon realm. Like, so she's like, you summoned me. And she's like, no, I didn't. I was trying to summon Flower, right? Like she just got all the words wrong. But she made this joke, like, I'd sell my soul I'd sell my soul to be able to do this right. And he's like, here I am. But he is down and out in the demon realm because he accidentally acquired a soul of his own, big angel energy from Buffy too. So he has all these inconvenient feelings, but he can sense her power. And he's like, boy, it would be a real get to get this soul to like power my Wi-Fi or whatever. That's like a joke in the book. I didn't make that up. And so he's like, I'm not leaving. Now, meanwhile, who shows up? Her mother. And in order to like cover up why is this demon in her house, she says they're dating, and off we go. It's really cute and really funny. I think that what you want from these books is just like that, like banter and hilarity. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, these books really deliver. This is the first in the Glimmerfall series. The second book is called A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch, and then the third one is A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire. So they're not all witchy, but the first two are. And this first one is terrific. So Mariel and Ozroth are gonna figure it out. And who ends up with a soul at the end? Who knows?
So I'm gonna jump off of that one because I have one on my list that is not there where that is in a world that has more supernatural characters than just witches, which is a different kind of witch book. It feels like I feel like they're two.
There's like magic, but it's a little different.
I guess in the Celestine Martin there's a merman one, but it just feels like when there's lots of different paranormal creatures in the book, it feels slightly different. But Not the Witch You Wed by April Asher is for all of our fake dating fans out there. And I'm going to say I kind of love this fake dating because it has high stakes for me. So let me paint you a picture, Jen. Okay, so the main character, whose name is Violet, Violet is a witch who does not have magic. And this world has like shifters and like otherworldly like paranormal creatures in it. And they all know each other. They all live alongside each other. And when she was young, she had her heart like broken by an alpha wolf shifter named Lincoln Thorne. And when they separated, and she swore she would never interact with him ever again. But at the beginning of this book, it becomes clear that they are both going to be forced by like their own magical like overlords, their own magical entities, to find their fated mates. Like it's time to find their fated mates. And neither of them want this. Like they both are like not ready. And so they decide that what they're going to do is try and trick the magical overlords into believing that they are fake mates, like that they are fated mates, in order to like just basically buy themselves time. And of course, this works not at all. Like not even for a moment, because aside from the fact that they begin to have feelings for each other, there's this kind of larger question of like, wait, but what if they aren't fated mates? And also like, what if they are? Like how does that impact everything about how they have lived their lives, especially since Lincoln definitely broke her heart a million years ago. And so it's really this one is this is like high banter. And it's really cute. It's very cute. A really, really quick read.
This might be the place for me to slot in my little series that I was going to talk about. So we've talked about this before on Kindle Unlimited. Sometimes you'll get like a consortium of authors who will write like a series, right? That are all like tied together, even though all the books are by different people. Mm-hmm. And I think this is going to be like the series of the summer. I'm going to call it right now, because the first book is by A.J. Sherwood, and there are 15 books in the series. This first one and the second one are out now, and then there's literally one dropping every week for the rest of the summer.
Whoa.
I know, which is like super smart.
And they're all witch books?
No. So they're kind of fae, witches, warlocks, kind of the magical world.
Okay.
But the first one, which is the one I read, is called A Fae Coin Transported Me into Another World, and Now I'm the Gay Holy Maiden. And you know what? I just was like, boy, I have to read that, don't I? And I did. And basically what happens is Jake Alexander walks into his father-in-law's office and is like, I'm getting divorced. Your son has been cheating on me. He's been with all these other women. Like, I'm over it. And he kind of is finally like, I'm free. His parents had sort of set them up in this arranged marriage. So Jake walks out and he sees something shiny on the ground, and he picks it up and he gets transported into this fae realm. And of course, he usually maidens are transported. It turns out Jake and his husband had never consummated their marriage. And so he gets transported into this realm, and there he meets Theon, who is who's like a duke, but there's this miasma, this strange thing that is impacting all the crops. And so Jake and Theon are going to actually have to get it together and figure it out. Now, from what I can tell, I think these are all these seem to be authors that write gay romance. So there's a bunch of different ones, but The Sorcerer's Thief coming out June 20th. There is The Prince of Poison, Grave Misfortune, Kisses at the Crossroads, Smoke and Mirrors. At the end, Lucky or Not, KNOT. We have Elliot Grayson, who is an author I really like. So these are some of these authors I've never heard of before, but to happen upon this at the beginning of the summer, just when there's one every month or one every week feels great. So they're not exactly witches, but I feel like it's magic, fae magic, and magical coins and stuff. So kind of close enough. And I think for sure that title is meant to remind us of that time I got drunk and yeeted a demon series or whatever. Yeah. Right. So yeah.
Okay. So I have a novella that I've talked about before, but I'm going to talk about it again. I think I've talked about it on a Halloween episode, I'm sure. But Alexis Daria's What the Hex is so freaking charming. It was an Audible original, so if you read an audio, start there. But if not, it's now available in print and and if you get the print, apparently, I just found this out today when I was prepping for the episode, there is a bonus story in the print version. So, like, that's fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
This series, I think it's going to be a series. I don't think it's a series yet, but I think it's going to be a series, or at least it's intended to be, is set on a place called Isla Bruja. And that's a secret magical like enclave for the wealthiest and most powerful Latinx witch families. Fine. The main character, Catalina, Kat, is going home for her sister's wedding. And when she gets there, she discovers that everyone at the whole wedding is under a demon's spell.
Right.
And so the only people who are not under this demon spell are her and Diego, the groom's brother, who is also like Kat. Like, they hate each other. Like, Kat hates him.
Yeah.
Except there are like a handful of days before the wedding, and they have to work together to break the spell and save their families. And it's just like, it's a fantasy like island wedding. I mean, like, it hits all those tropes, like wedding on an island, big wealthy families. Like, Alexis does families so well, and it's just a really fun ride. I listened to this in audio a million years ago when it came out, and it's just such a fun book.
There's a whole entire
It's a novella
category called witch romances.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Of course. Okay.
I think we should just I just want to name check Erin Sterling, who wrote the X Hex, which is like is the X Hex I can't remember. There are two in that book, in that series, and people really love those books, and there are lots of others. Cabot has one called Enchanted to Meet You.
Yeah, it's really cute. That's another one that if you're looking for like maybe like a read along with like a younger reader, in this book it is like an adult romance, but there is a timeline that is like what happened in high school. And it's like on page, like it's dual timeline. And I feel like, to me, like I mean, that always means like it's going to just skew younger because you're reading about younger like them as younger people. Right. So that one's really cute. And basically a love potion went wrong when she was in high school, and he has like never forgiven her, but now he's back and needs her help to, fix some dastardly plan or plot or whatever.
And also, Juliet Cross, who's been writing paranormal romance for a really long time, has a series called Stay a Spell, which is 6 books long. Each one of those books is a witch story. I haven't read them, but I am going to because they look charming. And also because the way that I discovered this is today I looked up Resting Witch Face, which I thought surely somebody's written a Resting Witch Face book. And in fact, Juliet has, and I have not read it, but I'm going to.
All right. Well, that's it. Real witchy, everybody.
Very good time in June to do it. Anyway, that's that. I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. You can find us at fatedmates.net. You can find us on Wednesdays every week in whatever podcasting app you use. You can find us on Twitter at Fated Mates, on Instagram at Fated Mates Pod, on Blue Sky and Threads and Tumblr at Fated Mates and all of those places. And if you'd like to join our Patreon and have more banter about photographs and what else did we banter about at the beginning of this episode? Something else. Join us there. fatedmates.net/Patreon. Yeah, the Great Lakes. That's what we did.
Keep it real witchy, everybody. Yeah, exactly. We want to hear about them.
Stay witchy.